I can see the red light, but I can't hear on that one.
He's going to go back there and EQ it.
Okay.
Hold on, we're not recording yet, but we're going to.
I'm sorry?
We're not recording yet, but we're going to, so hold on. All right. All right, Mr. Dean, you're up.
Okay. Can you hear me? Am I coming across? It's not. What are these on?
We can't. All right. Talk loudly. No, I still can't hear Mr. Dean.
This one works.
We need Lane Sigma mic
Hello?
check.
Okay.
Where is she? That's what we need. Where were you 45 minutes ago?
Okay. Good evening, members of the Olmsted Falls and Olmsted Township School Board. It is with regret to advise you that you are in violation of Ohio state laws as well as state and federal constitutions. Violations are subject to fifth-degree felony charges and civil rights penalties. Under the Freedom of Information Act, I gave to the school board, I requested information, specifically item number 3, I reference, quote, indicated under Ohio Revised Code, section 4731.41, quote, no person shall practice medicine and surgery or any of its branches without the appropriate license or certificate from the state medical board to engage in the practice. I requested a copy of that notarized document to the school board. The response from Brett Robson, treasurer, is, quote, documents related to item 3 of your request do not exist. The request is extremely narrow, requesting notarized authorization allowing specific health procedures from the Board of Health or similar state entities. I didn't write that. I didn't make it up. I'm sure you didn't contact the state legislatures. That is established written law. You were engaged in unlicensed practice of medicine. In addition, reflected in the Olmsted Falls School District Policy Manual, Section 0000, Bylaws, Title, Philosophy of the Board, Code P0118, Status Active, adopted December 17th, 2015, quote, a Board of Education is a legal entity for providing a system of public education with a geographic area of the state of Ohio. The system was created by and is governed by state statutes. The Board of Education has a dual responsibility for implementing statutory requirements pertaining to public education and for meeting the desires of the citizens. By your stating my request for a copy of the appropriate licenses or certificate for the state medical board to engage in the practices do not exist, the school board is in violation of Ohio Revised Code 4731.41, 4731.34, 47112.02, as well as federal and state statutes. On the school board meeting of October 21st, 2021, I gave each school board member, a copy of those Ohio Revised codes. Inasmuch as the school board abdicated their responsibilities to the superintendent, of which the board pledged to uphold to voters under the oath to state and federal constitution and state statutes without having required authorization in deference to board policy and to the voters of Olmsted Falls and Olmsted Township, the board as well as the superintendent could be held legally accountable for violations of those laws. Superintendent Jim Lloyd, as chief administrator, knew or should have known the law was being violated. To save further embarrassment and any negative reflection to the city's citizens of Olmsted Falls and Olmsted Township, I respectfully ask what and how the school board intends to address the indicated violations of law and civil and individual rights as stated. I further request deferment or rejection of any consideration for renewal of Superintendent Jim Lloyd's contract schedule 1 year in advance until the indicated violations and improprieties are addressed and finally resolved. I will anticipate a reasonable but prompt response in the near future. In addition, I have copies of this request to all board members, and I would ask the treasurer to incorporate in the board minutes a copy of this request. Thank you.
Say it again, what are you requesting from the board?
It's in there.
Okay.
Is it in there?
Right here.
Okay.
Bill?
Right there. Here.
Sorry for it. Kevin.
Ms. Suzanne Corley.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Corley, and it is with thoughtful contemplation that I'm here tonight to implore the school board not to renew Jim Lloyd's contract. Please consider the following. Common Core, implemented and promoted under Jim Lloyd. Reduced academic standards, achievement, and readiness have resulted. Test scores have declined. It's been indicated that Olmsted Falls no longer ranks in the top 10 school districts in the Cleveland metro area. Parental and student input and concerns about the substantial changes implemented via Common Core were dismissed, rejected, and even mocked. 2, Jim Lloyd masked our children and implemented other unnecessary and harmful COVID policies to receive ESSER funds. Lloyd knew he was required to mask our children, require invasive testing, and encourage students to participate in experimental vaccines as a condition of accepting this funding. Lloyd was deceitful in justifying his actions. Our children did not need to be masked. It was a choice. He did it to receive the money. It was a choice. What we've been through for the last 2 years was a choice. 3, Jim Lloyd agreed to implement social emotional learning criteria as part of the agreement to receive ESSER funding. It is a documented fact that 20% of the ESSER funds are required to be allocated to SEL-themed programs and materials. Thus, Jim Lloyd hired Jim Knight to do so. To my knowledge, no parental input or concerns were sought or considered regarding implementing SEL in our schools. And many parents have since voiced concern and are rejecting SEL outright. It is disheartening that the Olmsted Falls City Schools mission statement says nothing in regards to American values, but wokefully proclaims, quote, empowerment to be citizens in a global community. Also consider Spirit Week's Transgender Day confirms Olmsted Falls City Schools is following the herd of cultural wokeness right over the cliff. And Lloyd is leading this charge. Jim Lloyd deceived parents and members of the community, claiming that critical race theory is not active within Olmsted City Schools. FOIA requests of email correspondence between Jim Lloyd and Olmsted Falls parent prove that Jim Lloyd was notified and knew about CRT-themed lessons and promotions taking place in classrooms. Mismanagement of funds. Our school budget was in a vulnerable state, which likely contributed to Lloyd accepting the ESSER funds. Funding priorities were given to support Common Core and other high-cost data collecting and data-driven technologies. Funding was gravely inadequate for the much-needed acquisition of new buses and bus facility maintenance, which resulted in unsafe conditions for our students and drivers. Jim Lloyd has treated parents with whom he disagrees very poorly. Lloyd is condescending, combative, disrespectful, vindictive, and retaliatory. Jim Lloyd has established a group called Key Communicators, which he uses and manipulates to spread support for his actions and messages on social media and in the community. So essentially, Jim Lloyd is no longer the right choice for superintendent for Olmsted Falls City Schools. The track record of Lloyd's time as superintendent is adequate to show that it is time for fresh, new leadership in our schools. Leadership that better aligns with our academic goals and with the principles and values of our Olmsted Falls community. Thank you.
Ms. Loretta McCafferty.
Good evening. I am Loretta McCafferty. Just as a follow-up from last month when I brought up about the Protect Ohio Children Coalition, and they cite all the school districts in Ohio that are practicing with evidence CRT, SEL, CSE, all the other alphabet. With your permission, may I give this? I wish I had 6. I just have one handout that talks about the Protect Ohio Children Coalition. So you may all want to check that out. It lists Olmsted Falls as one of the school districts that have evidence that this is being taught in our schools. To the school board members, you were elected to represent the taxpayers, the parents, and the students in this school district. You have failed in your position, as well as the superintendent. As a taxpayer, I insist that you not renew the superintendent's contract. Thank you.